Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
Hello, Salt Strong Nation. Joe Simons, like diamonds. We are back again. Got my boy Captain Peter Deeks. What's up, buddy?
Hey, Joe. Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited about this.
Yeah, we're talking all about boats. We've had a lot of members, I mean a lot, have asked about boats and everything from maintenance, which you've done a whole course on or mini course on with us, to, hey, I'm confused on what type of boat I should buy. And in general, what we've seen is people are looking at either bay boats or some sort of skiff, which could be a lot of things, right? It could be a Maverick like Luke has, or a Hughes, or it could be even, a small little canoe. And so in this podcast, we want to kind of break down some of the maybe hidden costs and things that you probably need to know about before you buy any sort of saltwater fishing boat. And I couldn't think of anyone better than Captain Peter Deeks, who owns multiple boats and has had all of the above and spends a lot of time on the water and has probably seen it all in terms of what could possibly go wrong, what could break, what could happen to your trailer, what could happen at storage places. I mean, all the things that you've had to deal with over the years. So I don't even know where you want to start on this one, Peter, in terms of someone comes up to you and says, all right, man, I'm thinking about buying my very first saltwater fishing boat. What questions do you even ask them first to kind of whittle it down to maybe what they should or shouldn't get?
Well, I think we could go in many different directions on this, but I think to start out with, you want to figure out where your financial situation is. If you have plenty of money, you're able to hire people to do your repairs. It'll give you a lot more freedom to purchase really any kind of boat, a fancy boat that has all kinds of bells and whistles, and you really can't go wrong. So I guess we should probably focus on people that, their money matters to them and they want to get the best bang for their buck. So you want to be careful that you don't make a bad decision when purchasing your boat. So I think let's kind of stick in that arena.
Yeah, it makes sense. That's probably the majority of us that don't want to waste money and don't have a private mechanic.
It is. And there's a lot of people that can't afford that, but there's more people that can't. So in saltwater, corrosion is the biggest enemy. And salt corrodes everything but fiberglass and gel coat. And so that's why we tend to stick to fiberglass boats. Aluminum boats are nice. They're great. They're cool. And they can last. But, normally I don't recommend that in a saltwater environment because you're going to face some corrosion issues. So look for a fiberglass boat, and that's going to last long. The other thing that you want to look for is you want a dependable engine. If you're going to purchase a new boat, a new flat boat or a bay boat, there's so many different boats out there, and most of the new boat manufacturers, they're all great. So it really just boils down to the amount of money you want to spend on your boat, because you can buy a small flat skiff from a boat company like Health Bay, and you're going to spend a lot more money than you would a non-name brand boat in the same size. So it just kind of depends on how much money you want to spend in that if you're going to purchase a new boat. My opinion, if you're looking for a fishing boat that you don't want to have that much maintenance on, and you're going to purchase new, find a boat that doesn't have that many bells and whistles. So when you look at the center console, if there's a lot of different switches, especially switches that have chrome, that are metal, you want to avoid that, because all metal, even the stainless steel, is going to rust. If it's nickel plated, it's going to corrode. Metal is your enemy on saltwater. And so you want a very clean boat that doesn't have all kinds of fancy stuff. You go to a boat show and you climb aboard these new boats, and some of them are just really cool. They got saltwater misters on their T-tops, and you've got all these different switches, and you got lights, cockpit lights. I mean, you go on and on and on, and you have a bunch of different fish finder units all over your dash. everything's going to corrode and everything's going to break at some point. And saltwater is going to make it happen that much faster. So one big fish finder unit is better than 2 or 3 smaller ones. Fewer the items you have and the bigger they are, the better, in my opinion. So one big fish finder, a couple of important switches, it's really all you need for a fishing boat. And then add on as much of the other accessories that you might want to do maintenance on yourself or have somebody come work on it. But within a year or two, just about everything's going to start corroding and breaking on your boat. So you want to be a minimalist when you're looking for a fishing boat in saltwater that's not going to break on you.
Yeah, and a lot of it depends on where you store it too, right? If you're in a high and dry that's on the water, like on the saltwater, which most of the high and dries are, and here in Florida in particular, and or if you have the luxury of having your own lift on the saltwater, I mean, you'll be shocked at how quickly stainless steel, right? Like all the screws and everything from your hatches and all that, they will be completely done. And because I think so many people have that misconception, oh, it's stainless steel. And you even hear the salespeople say, oh, it's stainless steel, everything. And I kid you not. And my dad, I know this because my dad's, boat, he bought a brand new boat. He does have the luxury of having a little lift there in Port Charlotte area. And I'm telling you, Peter, every single thing on there, I mean, every piece of metal was just completely done. I mean, rusted, has to replace. I mean, basically every year you're having to replace all those little screws and stuff. Nothing will last that long if you're keeping it out in the elements on the saltwater. It's mind-boggling how fast that stuff goes. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, it is. And it's really important, especially purchasing your new boat, because you're going to be responsible for the depreciation of it, how it works. Because if you look at the most expensive flat boats and day boats, they're actually the most minimalistic boats built the best. So if you look at the most expensive flats and day boats, you'll notice that they don't have a lot of fancy things. There's not going to be a whole lot of switches. There's not going to be a lot of accessories. It's going to be mostly gel coat, fiberglass, and it's easy to wash. There's not that much that's going to corrode. A lot of times you look at the boats that are kind of in that middle price range, they're trying to sell you, the manufacturer's going to sell you on that glamorous look, all that bling that's going on in that boat, all these accessories, little additions and things like that. And then they'll have through holes that are made of plastic, which are going to corrode, or there's different sections of the deck and the cap that are screwed in, and screws are going to rust. So the most minimalistic fiberglass boat you can get is going to serve you the best long term, and it's going to keep up its value, and it's going to give you the least amount of headaches. As far as the style of boat, depends on what you like, what you're looking for, and where you want to fish, and where you live, and if you're going to keep it in your garage. So whether you get a big 26-foot bay boat or a little 17-foot skiff, everybody's needs are going to be different. So it's hard to recommend that. But as far as like longevity and trying to avoid headaches, not that far down the road, try to find one that doesn't have all those bells and whistles.
That's great advice. And we'll talk about, bay boat versus maybe skiff in a little bit. I love your feedback on new versus old, and especially on how you look at that with, different warranties. Your engine probably, being the main one. What do you tell people when someone says, hey, I have enough to afford a new boat, but maybe I should get used? What are your thoughts?
So I get asked that a lot by my clients and friends, because most people that I'm friends with are in that boat. They don't want to lose a lot of money buying a new boat. And so they're looking for a used boat. And so there's just a million different directions you could go. But I've purchased a number of used boats myself, and I have a pretty strong opinion on that. And you can kind of go one of three ways. One way is you're purchasing a used boat for the value of the boat, and you take into account repowering. So you buy a boat that has an engine with it's older, or it has a lot of hours on there. And so let's say the boat is valued at $30,000 with a new engine. Well, you could purchase it for 20, use the old engine that's on there. When it blows up, you could put 15 in it, and now you're only $5,000 over what the boat value would be, worst case scenario. A big mistake a lot of people do is they'll buy a boat that's older with an engine that's older, but they're paying too much for that. And when the engine goes, which the engines do go, and they're going to go, the boats can technically last forever. Your engine will not. And all of a sudden, the engines are so expensive. A new 300 horsepower engine close to $30,000, a 220,000. So you buy that sweet deal, and then the engine blows, and you can't afford to put a new motor on there. And boats are not worth all that much without a motor. So you either buy the boat for the engine, which is not really kind of what I recommend, because the boat's going to last a lot longer than the engine. So buy a boat that either A, has a newer engine with low hours, or buy an older boat that you really like, that's more affordable with an older engine, with the anticipation of repowering. And I think to get the best bang for your buck is to find a high-end boat manufacturer, a boat that you really like, that is a lot cheaper because it has an old engine, and repower that engine, put new wiring on it, and a new motor on the back of that boat. And technically you have a brand new boat. Now, that is kind of like the best bet for me is if I'm going to buy a used boat, I'm buying the boat, planning on repowering with a new motor, because the motor is what's going to make your day good or bad. The boat normally is not. You're going to get broke down, or it's not going to start, or you're going to have issues with it. It's a massive headache, or you don't have the confidence to go out fishing off the beach or things like that. It takes away the fun if you don't trust your engine. So that's one route. The other route is buying a boat that has a new motor, but it's an older boat. You don't really love the boat. That's not really the best route. Or the third route is it's a diamond, and it doesn't happen very often, but it's finding a boat that you really like that has a low hours on a newer motor, and for a good price. I mean, you really can't go wrong with that. I do recommend 4-stroke engines, and they'll last a long time, but I don't have a lot of confidence in engines that are pushing like 6 or 7 years old, and I don't have a lot of confidence in engines that are over 1,000 hours. They might last 5,000 hours, but you're just going to have zero issues with motors in that range.
That was going to be my question. In your opinion, what does low hours mean when you say I found one with low hours? Is it 100 and 1,000 is high hours?
That's not how often you're going to use it. I would say low hours is going to be 200 to 300 hours. Everybody has a different opinion. That's my opinion. I put about 600 hours on my engine every year. A lot of my friends put way more hours. I fish inshore, so you run into one spot and you turn your engine off and you do it. People that fish offshore might put 2,000 hours on their engine in a year. It just depends how often you use it. So corrosion and neglect and things like that catch up on time. So age of the engine, and then the actual just lifespan of the internal parts of the engine are going to last based on use. So a new engine with 2,000 hours, I wouldn't really want that if I was going to use it a lot, because something's eventually going to happen. And an engine that's like 15 years old that only has 100 hours on it, I would be very concerned with that too, because you're going to have a bunch of external corrosion, things you're not seeing, wires are getting old. So, finding an engine that's, 2 to 5 years old, 4-stroke with 200 to 300 hours, maybe 400 hours, like that's going to last you years of good use with no issues.
That's great. I want to talk about length of the boat. I've met a few people, and in particular, if it's their first boat, their first saltwater boat, that just assume, hey, bigger is always better. And sometimes it is. You can do more in it. Obviously, a 28-foot boat, you're going to be able to do a little bit more offshore and obviously carry more people. But I met a few people in particular that got like a 26. This is their very first boat, and their kind of immediate reaction after trailering it and using it a few times and storing it and all the extra costs that happen is like, man, I wish I would have gone a little bit smaller for my first boat. Any thoughts there in terms of, buying a first boat? Would you say go smaller and work your way up, or and just go in and learn it the hard way and get something big?
Oh man, that's a hard question to answer. It depends on your physical fitness, your comfort level, and where you fish. I like to fish the smallest boat that I'm comfortable fishing in that area because smaller boats are easier. A boat less than 20 feet, let's say less than 18 feet, you can get by with a single axle trailer. And let's definitely talk about trailers, before we end the podcast. But a single axle trailer, you don't need brakes. So you're just eliminated a whole massive nightmare there by having a boat that's small enough to trailer comfortably on a single axle trailer, a lot less maintenance. It's easier to back into the water. It's easier to pull out. You're not going to feel it behind your car. You're not going to have to buy a big diesel or a big truck to tow it. 26-foot boat, you're going to need a big car to tow it. You're going to need a big engine truck or, big SUV. So there's a lot of the kind of the brake factor. The bigger the boat, the more problems you're going to have. And the harder it is to trailer and the harder it is to store, the harder it is to move around by yourself. Now, on the opposite side of the spectrum, the smaller the boat, when you get real small, it's kind of the same thing. So if you're maybe you don't have great balance or you're in areas that are a little bit rougher, a smaller boat's going to be harder to navigate safely. There's storms that arise, like you're kind of going to be in trouble if you're in a 17-foot skiff out in the middle of Charlotte Harbor. And maybe if you want to bring 3 friends, it's going to be because you're going to be a little too crowded in there. And so I usually recommend boat kind of right there in the middle for a first boat. If you're a younger person and you're very strong and agile and nimble, then, get a real small boat or a big boat, you're going to figure it out. And once you let me pause real quick. Once you get comfortable with your boat is going to start feeling small. And that'll always happen. So it's kind of, you've got to get through that threshold. So let's just say you're not a first time, you're second time boat buyer. You've always had an 18-foot boat. Now you're going to buy a 22-foot boat for the family. Well, the first couple of times you go out, it's going to seem big and cumbersome. And you're going to be worried it's going to be hard to trailer and back up. But after a year or two, it's going to start feeling small again. Maybe you want to invite more friends out. Maybe you want to fish a little further offshore. You're so comfortable with that now, it's going to feel smaller. Like your house or the car you have now, whatever you have, over time, it's going to start to feel less important and it's going to kind of feel smaller. So if you did purchase a boat, like let's say your friend that purchased a 26-foot boat and they're like, oh no, a big boat, first time boat, push through that stress and it's going to feel smaller to you. Now, a 26-foot boat is going to keep you from being able to fish in shallow flats. It's going to keep you from being able to push pull. And you're going to have a serious trailer and a big truck to tow it. So, there's definitely some downsides to it. But as far as the comfort level, that just comes with time and getting used to using it. So regardless of the boat you get, just plan on it being a little stressful at first, especially if you're new to boat. The first time you take it to the boat ramp and the 10th time you take it to the boat ramp, it's going to be a little stressful. But it's okay. Go slow, go a little early, take your time, ask for help, smile on your face. Nobody cares. A lot of times I see people, they're just panicked at the boat ramp. And they're like, because they're new. And they think they're holding people up. They're not. The worst people at boat ramps are the people that have been doing it forever and they just don't care about anyone else and they keep their boat tied up there while they go to the bathroom and slay their fish and block the ramp. Like those are the people that everyone gets frustrated with. The person that's learning how to ramp their boat and trailer that's courteous to everyone, it only in your mind is that it's a stressful situation because it's not. And you're going to get used to it, and over time, you're going to get better and better and better, and then it's going to become like nothing. So if you do have a family of 6 and you fish inlets and beaches a lot, you're going to need a 26-foot boat, and you're just going to have to kind of get used to it. And if it's you and your friend that fish a lot back within the mangroves in Tampa Bay, man, maybe you need just a 17-foot skiff. Now you get real shallow, you push pole, you catch a lot more fish. And the smaller the fish, I mean, the smaller the boat, the more fish you're going to catch because it leaves a smaller footprint in the water. The fish will not be as spooky and they'll bite your bait closer to your boat. So wading is the best way to catch fish. Second is kayak. Third is smaller boat. And as you go up in bigger boats, it's going to be more and more and more and more difficult to catch inshore fish. And that's the rule. Now, bigger the boat, the more comfortable, the farther you can go, the more spots you can fish. There's benefit to it, but it's more challenging to catch fish in a bigger boat than a smaller boat.
Oh, I'm so glad you say that. So you have, is it a 25 yellowfin? 24?
Yeah, it's a 24-foot yellowfin. And I've had lots of different boats, but right now I'm fishing a 24 yellowfin and an 18-foot fuse. And I've got some smaller boats and things like that. But what I fish day in and day out are those two boats.
All right. So in general, let's talk about the costs, and you don't have to share your exact numbers, but in general, what is the difference? We're talking insurance, gas, storage, maintenance, like all those things that come into play on let's just say a 24-foot bay boat versus a 18-foot skiff. How different are they?
Insurance is based on the value of the purchase price of the boat. So a boat it'll be like twice. So if you have you can shop around. I don't pay all that much for insurance, but I've got a good company. I use Charter Lakes. I mean, it's a lot, but I've got friends that use other companies, and it's twice as much as mine.
Wow.
There's a bunch of different companies for recreational use that insure boats. So if you have a boat that's worth $30,000, your insurance is probably going to be half of a boat that's $70,000. I would suspect you're probably looking at that $900 a year range, which isn't that much. And I highly recommend getting your boat insured. However, read all of the fine print. I once had a boat stolen in Miami, coming back from the Keys. That's some car problem. And I don't really like talking about this. This was a long time ago. And it got stolen at a resort. And my insurance company at the time wouldn't cover it. And they sent me this big, thick booklet on all of the reasons why they wouldn't cover it. They sell it to you like you're good. And then when you need them, they say, well, look at all these different things that void it. And one was if it's not attached to your truck, then you had to take a tire off your axle. And that was I was early in my guiding career, and I had to absorb the entire cost of that lost boat. And that's horrific. So you definitely want to read the fine print on insuring boats. But I do have a lot of friends that they own the boat cash. Sometimes on smaller skiffs, they don't insure it, because after a couple of years, you kind of start losing a lot of money. So that's I recommend it. All of my equipment is insured, but that's something you want to take into account for yourself. And one thing about insurance, read it on there on each policy, but CTOW is very important to have if you need to get towed. And I throw CTOW out there. It's like, not that that's everyone that's the name everybody associates with a company that's going to tow you back. But there's Towboat US. There's a bunch of different companies that'll tow you in if you break down and get in trouble. Many insurance providers have that covered with those companies already in there. For instance, mine, it covers me, I don't know exactly the number, but a couple of times free tow. So I don't have to purchase that subscription. So that's something you want to look into with your insurance because you might be purchasing a subscription that you may not need.
That's good. What about overall maintenance, storage? What's the difference there on your small boat versus the big one?
Yeah, sorry, I got sidetracked. Maintenance cost is probably going to be, it just depends on how many bells and whistles you have. It's probably twice again. So my yellowfin is probably 3 times the value of my fuse, and it's probably 3 times the amount of maintenance. For instance, every couple of years, if you use your boat a lot, you probably need to replace your rub rail because that's where the deck cap and the hull meet, and that's a couple $1,000s. Your bilge pump and all of your pumps, your live well pumps, you're most likely going to have to replace every year. I highly recommend purchasing those at a reputable company like West Marine, and you can buy their additional warranty program. And if it breaks within a couple of years or whatever their time frame is, they'll replace it right there in the store. So that's what I do. it saves you a lot of money in the long run. So it really starts adding up. So if you look around your boat, everything that's pump wise is going to be replaced probably every year. Your trolling motor, depending on how good you take care of it, it's probably going to last a year to a year and a half. You're going to have to do maintenance on everything. You're going to have to, every 100 hours, you have to do maintenance on your outboard, which is probably going to cost you about $300, regardless if it's a 300 or a 115. I've got 2 stations on my yellowfin, so that's twice the amount of maintenance. You have to put new fluid in there and check the seals. And I'm trying to think of all the different things that I do. The plug on your trolling motor, you're going to have to replace every year, whether you think you need it or not, because it's going to corrode, and that's a biggie that a lot of people often overlook. And because I trailer a lot, I spend a lot of money on my trailers. And on my yellowfin, I have 2 axles, so that's 4 tires. I end up replacing all of those tires probably twice a year.
Wow.
Based on weight or running something over. So that's a lot more than 1 or 2 on the little Qs that maybe I'll replace 1 a year. And there's only 2. And then I got to get my brakes changed out, your bearing set. So this is what I do for my maintenance, and I would do it if I fished a lot or a little, because I hate being broke down on the side of the road. I mean, I remember seeing you and Luke on the side of the road going down to the Keys at one time, and I've been there a million times.
I remember you honked at us, and we were there. Massive lightning storm coming. That was a fun afternoon. Broke it down.
It's the worst feeling, and like my memories going back into childhood, going down to the Keys with my dad. We always had trailer issues. And so this is what I do to avoid them, but it ends up doubling your cost if you have a bigger trailer. And that's Timken bearings. Order Timken bearings. It's a very high grade steel. I've never blown one in probably 10 years. Maybe 1 or 2 if I hit a curb and blew my tire or an accident or something, but they last. But every year I replace all my bearings with Timken bearings. And I make sure that the tread on my tires are good. And I use as heavy a load of trailer tires as I can get from a tire company. So I actually go to a company that Boulevard Tire out in Cocoa, Florida, and they do semi-tractor trailers. And they have these boat trailer tires for me that are like, I don't know the exact specifics. I can text them to you, and I can look them up later. And you can put them up for everybody. But I highly recommend these. But I just flow through so many because I'm always hitting stuff on the highway and whatever. But as far as wear and tear, they last 3 times longer than all the others. But if you change your tires every year, and you change your brakes every year, and you change bearings with Timken bearings every year, you're not going to have any trailer issues. And if you rinse your trailer down with fresh water every time, and you keep it stored, it's going to last. And it's an aluminum trailer. It's going to last a really long time. If you don't, then it's not going to last all that long.
And I think the other side of the spectrum is don't trailer it and, put it in a high dry or something where you can call ahead and they have your boat in the water. Then again, that costs a lot of money too, right? I mean, some of these places on the coast are $600-$700 depending on the month, right? Depending on the size of your boat. And as we learned, because that was the time that you saw us, that was because we hadn't used that trailer in forever and didn't do a good job of updating everything. And it's just like anything. If you put it in salt water and you don't use it, ironically, it breaks down just as fast as if you are using it sometimes every single day. It's amazing how that works. What are your thoughts there? I know you personally like to go move around and you're trailing pretty much every day, right? You've never really kept your boat like on a lift or had like a home base where you're, always just a couple miles from your house.
Yeah, our fishing fluctuates so much that I like to trailer. So I'd rather drive 30 minutes in the car than 30 minutes in the boat and just put in right where the fish are. So I've always trailered. But I grew up on the Indian River, and my dad had a boat on the boat lift. And I found myself not using it all that much because if the fishing or the boating isn't that great, the water's dirty behind the house, we tended to not use it. And the corrosion factor was horrific. So keeping your boat on a boat lift, you have to just really stay on top of the maintenance.
Yeah.
Because once that corrosion starts, you can't stop it. But if you kind of stay ahead of it, you can get many more years out of the life of whatever's corroding. But a lot of people live on the river. You just got to stay on top of that. But the high-end dries are really cool. They're really convenient, but they're very expensive, and you have to add them on your insurance policy. And some of them require substantial insurance. It costs a lot of money. They'll require maybe like a $3 million policy on your boat. And then you have to add them. And sometimes that's a couple $1,000s in itself extra. And it's really expensive to use these places. And if you have a trailer, you have to find a place to park that trailer. And if there's not a boat on top of it, there's nothing protecting your trailer from the sun and corrosion. So these high-end dries usually will let you park your trailer there, but it's out in the elements. It's getting salt spray every day. The sun's baking it, and your trailer is going to die so fast. Mm-hmm. So if you know you're going to keep it on a high-end dry, maybe don't buy a trailer. They're very expensive. Downside is if there's a hurricane coming or you want to go on a vacation, you're going to need a trailer for that. So there's really no perfect fit other than just whatever is most convenient for you. But finding a boat slip with a boat lift or a high-end dry is a great option. Very convenient. Make a phone call, say, hey, I'm going to use my boat tomorrow at 9 a.m. and it's there in the water, and then they rinse it and they wash it for you when you go home at the end of the day. And that's a really sweet deal. Problem is you're kind of stuck fishing right wherever that is. Yep. But definitely stay on top of your trailer maintenance, even though you're not using it, because it's going to die even faster. Your tires, they're lubricated. The rubber is lubricated with the oils inside of them by being used. If it just sits in one place, tires are going to rot. And same with the bearings. The water's going to sit inside there. The grease isn't going to spin around on your bearings and pull the water off. So, maintenance is part of saltwater fishing.
This has probably scared quite a few people away from them. Like, might as well just stick with Freedom Boat Club and not have to worry about it.
Freedom Boat Club is really sweet. And a lot of my customers and a lot of Salt Strong members, friends of mine, they're members of it. The only downside is the not being able to have a trolling motor and some of the electronics and things on there make it a bit challenging.
Yep.
But other than that, it's a pretty good deal. But boat ownership, you can make it very easy for yourself. If you buy a boat that doesn't have all the shiny things on there, I don't want to throw anyone under the bus or say any manufacturer's better than another. But manufacturer A, you could go to a boat show and that boat is the boat that you want, and it looks so sweet. But there's a million different fancy little things on there. You can ask them on your boat to omit those. You're going to be happy that you did, unless you like maintenance. Now, if you are retired and you like boat maintenance and polishing your boat, and great, have more cool stuff on there. I mean, all those things are nice. But, if you're just going to get out and fish once or twice a month, try to go as simple as possible. You need one bubbler in your back live well. You need one live well pump for that. And you just go through the checklist. Do I need those misters? Probably not. Do I need 8 speakers? Are 4 good enough? That's a lot. I mean, you can cut down a lot of money by knocking that stuff down.
Even one power pole versus 2. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you can just keep minimizing that still. And that's what we have on our Pathfinder that Luke and I bought. We were trying to save some money and just went with one. It is nice to have 2. It's nice to have a lot of stuff, but yeah, you're right. The more things you have, the more things break. And right now, thank goodness we use mostly lures, but guess what? Live well's broken again. And we have 2 trolling motors, and I'd love to hear your feedback there, because I think out of all the things, a troll motor is pretty critical, especially if you're in, a bay boat. I can't imagine trying to fish inshore without one. We've done it. We've done some videos on it, drifting flats and stuff for trout, but to really go in there and get big redfish and snook that are tight to structure, it's really, really tough. And you remember for a while there, especially during COVID, it was tough to get anything. And so I think at one point we had 3. We're now down to 2 trolling motors just to have a backup. If you really are fishing a lot, because those inevitably, and it doesn't matter the brand, we got 2 different brands, 2 of the biggest ones, and they both break. Everything does, to your point, in saltwater over time.
It does. It does. And some of that stuff with the trolling motors I found can be avoided if you get a very good plug that goes from the trolling motor to the boat power source, and you replace it every year. And I keep Corrosion X. It's a really good spray. Corrosion X is your best friend if you have a boat. Spray it on your engine, your electrical points. It just creates a really good feel. But I put it on those plugs, and every year I replace them, and it does help the life of the trolling motor. I think having different power surges with corrosion really gets those trolling motors. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like you said, all of the trolling motor brands are going to have their own issues. And recently, some of the companies have come out with really nice brushless trolling motors, and they've fixed a lot of issues. So a couple of the trolling motor companies have much better products than anyone's had in the past. But yeah, in the past, I've had to have 3 or 4 trolling motors just because it's like one's down, one's at the shop, takes a month to get that one fixed, and you need it. But yeah, that's kind of all the stuff that.
Cool. What else, man? I know this could probably be a couple different episodes, and we'd love to get some comments. So please do comment down below with any other specific questions you have, and even brands. We obviously didn't talk about that, and that wasn't the point of today's podcast. It was more about just big picture. But what other things? Any other common mistakes or things that you hear from your customers? Like, man, I wish I had known this, or I wish someone had told me this before I bought this.
A couple things that, yeah. One is your trailer and how it lines up on your boat. You want to make sure that the bunks aren't rubbing on the on any high point on the hull. Make sure the boat sits center. Because if the trailer bunks are not aligned properly, it can wear through the hull of the boat. And I've seen that on a few boats of friends of mine, and I had that happen when I was like 16 or 17 on one of my boats. Pay attention to that. These are things you can avoid. And then purchasing a boat. So when you're buying a boat, look under there and see where the trailer bunks that, things covered in carpet is boat sitting on. Make sure that it hasn't worn through the whole of the boat, because that can happen. And then the other big mistake on boats, a lot of big boat manufacturers and little boat manufacturers have this issue, are the stringers that support the rigidity of the boat. It's kind of like the backbone of the boat. They will come loose. And so most boats, fiberglass boats, they've got a hull, which is just a shell that comes out of a mold. And then you've got the deck cap, and they sandwich them together. But on the whole shell, there are supports. Now, if those supports come loose, they can crush through the whole of the boat, and it becomes a big, very expensive issue. You have to usually remove the deck. You have to remove the gas tank. It's a massive fix. My friend Roland just went through this. It took him like a year to get his boat fixed. But I don't want to throw anyone on the bus, but some of the biggest well-known saltwater boat manufacturers have a bad history of stringers coming loose over a number of years. And so how to find that, I'm not an expert. You can probably hire some marine surveyors before you spend $30,000 or $40,000 on a boat to look at it. But if you take it out and you cross over boat waves, if there's anything that feels loose on your feet on the deck, because what happens is the deck starts separating from the hull. And so you'll feel that separation. You'll see the boat wiggle a little bit. You'll see your T-top shake kind of funny. You'll see the sides of the boat. You'll hear them kind of flap. So when you're going over big boat wakes, like make a donut, make a lot of boat wakes, run your boat right through it when you're test driving it. And if you feel anything loose like that, it's probably a boat you want to avoid. Because that is a very common issue with buying these boats.
Fantastic. That's a great tip.
And now, if I were to design my perfect boat that everybody would probably be happy with, that is a wide open boat that doesn't have a big gap between the deck and the hull. And it's hard. So, like, for instance, like a Caroline skiff, right? Everybody's familiar with that. You can kind of picture it in your mind. The true flat bottom is not great because it runs when you go over waves. It's really rough riding. It'll pound you. But they make a boat that'll have a V hull or maybe a slight V or a deep V, but a boat like that that's very simple. There's nothing hidden down there. So boats that have a big space between your cap and your hull, a lot of issues can happen down there. It's hard to access things. And, it's just a lot of issues. But if you just get a simple boat like that, you can see where everything is. You have new wiring from your engine to your controls, and you have a new steering system, and you have a live well pump, and you got a trolling motor, and you can see the why. It's so simple. You would never have that many issues. And if there was an issue, you could see exactly where it was. You could pile a bunch of people on there. If it's just you and one other person, you could get a 17-footer, 16-footer. If you want to take the whole family, you get a 24-footer and you can fish offshore. So if I was designing like a boat where you can just go eat it and abuse it and have a great time, you're not going to have issues. If you have an issue, you can fix it. It would be something like that. Now, it's not as sexy as a lot of the other boats, and there's some functionality to going with like a yellowfin that I fish. It goes fast. It drafts a little shallower. It takes the chop well. There's some things that I need that boat for to catch certain fish, and that's my job. But a lot of my friends, they're going to be mad that I'm saying this because it'll be hard to find one now, but that's kind of a good boat that you just can't go wrong on.
That's great, man. What a way to end it, dude. Any other ones?
Just the wider the boat, the more water displacement, the shallower it's normally going to draft. The flatter the bottom, the rougher it's going to be going over chop. So the deeper the V, the smoother it's going to ride, but the more it's going to draft. And the flatter it is, the less it's going to draft, but the more it's going to beat you up. And the wider the boat, the less it's going to draft. So if you're looking at different holes, a wide boat that has a V or a modified V, it's probably a pretty good compromise. Like you have a Pathfinder, 22 Pathfinder. That is exactly what that boat is. It is a very wide boat for a 22-footer, and it has a V hull on it. So it handles the chop really well, and it drafts really shallow. If you have a 22-foot boat that drafts probably as shallow as my 18-foot ute, and it's much bigger, and it's just in the design of it. And that's what makes those boats so highly sought after. But there's so many different types of utes and new boats out there, and I'm not familiar with all of them. I fish the boats that I have because they're the boats that I believe in, and I really like them for the fishing that I do. If I were to fish more offshore, I would have a different type of boat. If I were to fish more skinny water, I would have a different type of boat. But fishing inlets and the beaches and things like that, that's what I have. But I have a wife and a little baby, and I don't have a big family. If I had a big family, I'd probably get a different type of boat that would accommodate them with more shade and more seating and cushions and things like that. So just kind of want to find the boat that's best for you. My dad growing up, he still has it, but he's got a 22-foot Regal deck boat, fiberglass. And that was super cool because there's seats all around it because it's a deck boat, but it was very bare bones minimal. It was fiberglass. The whole thing was fiberglass, no carpet, all gel coat, and had nice seating for everybody. Had a big bimini top, which you got skiing and wakeboarding. We caught wahoo in that boat and tuna and dolphin and redfish and all kinds of cool stuff growing up fishing in that boat. And that was a really cool compromise there. Yeah. So it's really hard to talk somebody into what the perfect boat is, but my recommendation is just go to one of the boat shows and walk around and see all the boats. And if you have, you'll know what I'm saying. If you haven't, you're going to see it. But bling and fancy and chrome is what it's about. And it is cool, and you're going to love it. But it will all corrode within a year. You're going to have rust spots dripping down the sides of your boat. And the live wells aren't going to work, and there's a million wires in there. You're not going to be able to figure out what goes where. And it happens.
Keep it simple. Keep it simple. Dude, I love it. Yeah, this was so good. Well, we'll be doing more. And of course, Captain Peter Deeks is one of the fishing coaches here at Salt Strong. And so if you have other questions for him, make sure to be in the community. He's got quite a few courses, working on a new course, also an underwater course that has been in the making for a couple of years now. I'm really pumped. That'll be out later hopefully later this summer.
And it should be really cool. And similar to the live bait course that we did a lot of underwater footage, so you can actually see the fish firsthand, how they react, the baits, what they do, where they're actually at, and it's gonna be really cool. So it's been a lot of work. Probably capture those fish. It's like National Geographic, you got to catch them doing their thing without knowing you're there. But again, if you have any questions about these boats, or you want my advice or opinion or anything like that, it's not worth that much. But leave a comment or write on the forum, or send me a personal email or message, or send one to Joe, and I'd be happy to help you out.
Cool. That's awesome, my friend. And comment down below. We'll put this in the blog post if you happen to be listening on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you might listen to the podcast. At saltstrong.com in the fishing tips section, we will also have this embedded in a blog post where you can leave a comment. It'll come right to me, and I'll make sure we get an answer to it. So if you're not an Insider member, come join us. A lot of amazing things happen over there, helping you save time and money. Got a lot of new tackle deals and discounts, and we're still doing the free tackle every single month for tackle testing, and free Slam Shady every single month for all of our Insider members. So go to saltstrong.com/pricing. You can see all that information there. Otherwise, we will talk to you guys on the next episode.
So, pow! Thanks, Joe. Bam!
Cause fishing, it's in my soul.